Midday Live with Mike Catherwood.
Our number here is 800-222-5222. This is a conversation you will want to be a part of. The great Milo Yiannopoulos in the studio. Milo, thank you for joining us. Oh, his mic isn't working, though. Steve, you can't censor him that way. Sorry, you cannot do that.
Oh, my goodness. This is not going to fly. There we go. There we are. Now I can hear myself beautifully.
Drew is just commenting that Milo's accent is not typical London, that typical London accent. And Milo responded that he had...
I like to think of it as, Madonna circa 2010, Guy Ritchie era.
It's very much the Madonna.
Who's the other? Do you know Gillian Anderson in Bleak House? Gillian Anderson came over to England and she did a very well-received version of Bleak House for the BBC, which I think was a co-production with an American company. And Gillian Anderson trying to sound like a Dickensian noblewoman is a very funny thing. I have lost my accent. They tell me it's a mark of weak character, but I prefer to believe that it's because I'm such a people pleaser and I'm so eager for people to enjoy me that I'm converging with them. I'm meeting them more than halfway in my accent. But either way, it is definitely going.
I think there's something that should go. I mean, I'm always a bit
Hampstead Heath, is that what I'm hearing? There's a little sort of aristocratic Hampstead sort of quality to it?
Well, you have a very finely tuned ear. If I was speaking, I have to call someone like my mother or something to really get my accent back. And when I do get it back, I speak in what we call received pronunciation in England. So it's the sort of,
But I'm very suspect of people who don't lose their accent. I mean, Schwarzenegger's been here for 45 years, and he still talks like he's, in like Hitler's brigade. But
no.
Manny Ramirez is always, every time that you interview Manny Ramirez, he's always like, "All right, my baseball." I'm like, "Aren't you from Manhattan?"
I want to keep this conversation though in the realm of sort of your experience as somebody from the United Kingdom, if I suppose we could still call it such. Experiencing Americans and experiencing it in a very unique way.
Yeah.
Does the, I want to say, use a bad word, I don't want to give Steve more work, but the S-storms that you create, or does, as somebody from England, from London, does that surprise you, or is that something that we have, how would you interpret that? How would a Londoner see our behavior, in other words? How do you understand that?
Well, we see you as a sort of slightly slow cousin, that you see a couple of times at Thanksgiving who, couldn't quite pass the SATs, but and we'd like to pat on the head and we love you the same, even if you didn't come out right. And they sort of the theatrical tantrums that have always been associated with American politics have always amused me as a Brit. And I think we've always found American politics to be overheated, but very new, and this is what some of my upcoming book is about, are the extraordinary outbursts of outright political violence in response to ideas that we've seen from the progressive left and from, on college campuses and all the rest of it. It's been very remarkable to me.
So you're not making fun of us by evoking that?
No, actually, because it's very serious. It's distressing to me because we look up to you guys. We see you as defenders of capitalism, of free speech, free expression, of all the things that make societies great. All the places in the world you want to live, all the places in the world that the Rawlsian veil of ignorance. If you didn't know where you were going to be born. Where would you want to be born? Where you would want to be born somewhere that had a modern, Western, liberal democracy with free speech, equal rights, equal pay, all the rest of it. In other words, America. And it seems to me the progressive left in this country is determined to tear down all of the things that make this country the most wonderful. And what struck me as so shocking and so remarkable is that America has got to this stage now, supposedly the land of the free, home of the brave, all the rest of it, the home of the First Amendment, the one place in the world you should be able to say, do, and be anything. And you've got yourself into a situation where expressing perfectly respectable, reasonable, mainstream conservative opinions is considered to be professionally dangerous and socially disastrous. And it's got so bad that now right-leaning, conservative, in your case, Republican publications, are telling outright leftist lies to their own readership in order to sort of go along with this politically correct consensus.
Give me an example.
Moving for, well, let's say campus rape culture. You know, the idea that American college campuses are, a uniquely dangerous place for women. They're not. They're probably one of the safest places that you could ever be as a young girl. To believe the 1 in 3, 1 in 4, 1 in 7 statistic, whichever it is, on a given particular day, depending on which activist you speak to, sexual assault rates on American college campuses, you would have to believe that Brandeis and Harvard have the same levels of sexual assault as the Congo, where rape is used as a weapon of war. This stuff doesn't stand up to the slightest bit of intellectual scrutiny, and yet it's now being repeated by even right-leaning outlets. The wage gap's another example. Ivanka Trump is constantly posting on Facebook and on Instagram about the gender pay gap. It doesn't exist. It is a liberal fantasy. A female Harvard economist tried desperately last year to construct a scenario in which you could plausibly claim, taking all relevant economic factors into account, like childbirth and the different educational choices that women make. She tried to construct a gender pay gap and simply could not find one. It's one of those feminist myths that just won't die.
I saw a male economist actually have statistics that show if you're a 30-something-year-old woman that doesn't get married ever and not plan on having children, that statistically you'll make more money than your male counterpart.
Well, of course, because men put so much more into the tax system and take so much less out of it. We get sick less, we die sooner. Women have, economically speaking, have by far the better end of the deal.
Well, but hold on. By the way, it's Milo Yiannopoulos you're listening to. We're very privileged to have him here today. Give him a call at 800-222-5222. You simply can't deny the fact that women have to miss more work because of childbearing practices, right? One way or another conceived.
Yes.
They do.
Yes.
And we don't do much to protect that, right?
Well,
wouldn't it be smart of us to acknowledge what's really happening and then protect that and get women back into the workforce as efficiently as possible?
But of course, no one denies that, but you can't.
Well, they do. People say it's just strictly a pay gap, not that's an issue of individual priorities.
Obviously, look, there are two issues at play here. One of them is the unavoidable biological reality that women have to have children. And so there should be,
accommodation for that.
Yes, but in the tax system, you can't force companies to pay women when they don't work as long because they're having babies. What you can do is encourage them through the tax system, through tax breaks, through various other things. That's the right way to do things like that. But the really big factor actually isn't just childbirth. The really big factor is the different educational choices that women make. Now, if you look at the subjects that women choose to major in developing countries, and this is the most fascinating thing in this entire debate. And
it's developing, like, give me an example of developing.
Let's say Pakistan is what I'm thinking of. Right. Let's say somewhere like India or Pakistan. You'll notice almost total parity between the sexes in physics, in maths, right? Why is this? Well, it's because women have no choice but to go and get well-paid jobs, to drag themselves out of poverty, to get educated, right? Now, in more developed countries like Norway and the United States, women's educational choices as they get to university actually narrow. When you give women more choice, they take actually a fewer range of options. They prefer to go into lower paid professions. They prefer to go into childcare, social work, all that, and they prefer to major in English.
I'm wondering why they prefer. Is there any sort of thinking about that?
Well, that's who knows. But here's the thing: it's not that no women like science, because if you imagine there's some kind of extraordinary patriarchal conspiracy to keep women out of physics and out of maths, you have to explain why there is not one to keep women out of biology and veterinary medicine, where they dominate. I mean, the women graduating from veterinary medicine, I mean, there are some schools where it's like 5-to-1 girls to boys in, to be vets. And it's no easier to qualify as a vet than it is as a doctor. In fact, they study for longer. So it's, a lot of this stuff is very, very complicated, and you can reduce it to attention-grabbing memes and numbers. that have no basis in reality whatsoever.
That's the problem right there. And I think that for a figure like you, and even for someone far less controversial or looked at as far less of a provocateur, the problem is that by virtue of simply saying college campuses are nowhere near as dangerous for women as the media may claim them to be, you are deemed anti-woman, you are anti-feminist, you are anti the idea.
I mean, nobody that meets me for a fraction of a second thinks that I am pro-rape, right? It would be, it's an absurd proposition. And no normal, respectable, loving, reasonable person, I have love in my life. It's not something I talk about publicly, and I hope never to, because some of my life I like to keep private. But I have love in my life, and I know, I'm a thinking, feeling human being. It's not that I don't care about victims. I actually want to help them, and I don't think the way to help women is to lie to them and make them scared, make them scared to go to college. We're constantly being told that women are disadvantaged at college. Well, first of all, they're not. More women go to college than men. More women graduate from college than men. Women get higher grades at college than men. But all of that, despite the fact that we're scaring women away from going in the first place by telling them that these places, which are, by the way, run by liberals and have been for 30 or 40 years, hotbeds of sexual assault.
Milo Yiannopoulos, his new book is called Dangerous. Speaking of what's dangerous for women, Mike, Dangerous is a new book. I want to talk to you a little bit about the mob and how the mob behaves these days in America. But before I do, a friend of mine, Ryan Holiday, wanted me to mention a book.
Good author.
Trust Me, I'm Lying.
Yes, I like that book.
It seems like you've not said anything offensive today, and it seems to me that when you say offensive things, it serves a marketing purpose. It gets the mob going, and that serves your marketing needs, much in the way Ryan Holiday suggested. Trust Me, I'm Lying.
Look, I don't want everyone to be like me, but I think it's important that there are some people like me. And this, I do interviews like this, longer, more cerebral, grown-up interviews to try to explain to people why, I'll show up on campus with posters that say feminism is cancer. Why I try to get under people's skin. Well, for 30 years, conservatives in this country have tried to explain using reason, politeness, logic, essays, the National Review, commentary, Weekly Standard crowd have tried with kind, polite, eloquent, and delicate tactics to address big subjects: love, sex, death, money, war, the really big things, the stuff that matters. They have lost almost all of those discussions. The academy is now completely run, not just by liberals, but by far-left activists. Hollywood is gone. The media is gone. All of these spheres, and there's so much more important spheres than politics. By the time you elect a president, it's all too late. What happens in universities, in the cinema, and in the books that you read and on TV that you watch, that's where we need an open, free, fair marketplace of ideas of the type that J.S. Mill talked about. I'm a classical, liberal in that sense.
Utilitarian.
Yes, but I'm talking about on liberty, and I'm speaking particularly about his arguments about free expression and the tyranny of the majority, which is what we see happening in America today.
The Tocqueville's argument,
right?
Is Fox in your gone category, or is that a retrieved category, or is that?
I don't know. I mean, Fox News is just a very strange thing. I mean, first it was ferociously anti-Trump, and we had the Megyn Kelly thing, and then it seemed as though Fox seems to be run as a fiefdom by the Murdoch clan, right? So depending on which Murdoch is in the ascendancy, the tenor of their coverage changes quite dramatically. So it's my understanding that the Hannity, O'Reilly, pro-Trump moment that Fox looked like it might have is not, is over. Because
are you pro-Trump?
Me, I loved him. I'll be honest with you, and I understand all of the reasons people didn't. I fully acknowledge that he was and is. On occasion, he can cut a bit of a ludicrous figure sometimes.
On many occasions.
On many occasions.
Yes.
And
he's a bizarre fellow. No one would deny that.
He is a bizarre, clownish lunatic, but we love him for it, because here's the thing. I happen to agree with him on most of his tentpole policies. I think enforcing your borders is a good thing. What he said about immigration needed to be said, and most Americans, by the way, agree with him, left and right. I do think that this populist nationalist uprising against globalist elite, Davos, Bilderberg kind of, crowds. I do think that is something that is necessary, and I've enjoyed watching that happen both in Europe and in America. So on his actual policies, I'm broadly in line with him. But the real thing about Donald Trump was that he was somebody who was prepared to say, do, and be anything and didn't care what anybody said. Right. He didn't mind what the reaction was. In fact, he doubled down, and he taught. He is teaching, and I started this even before Donald Trump started running for president, and this is why let's say I identify with him. I have always done the same thing. Well, I don't want a country full of Donald Trumps, and I don't want university college campuses full of Milo Yiannopoulos. But it's very important to have people on both ends of the political and social spectrums who are prepared to say and do anything and to go there, because what it does is it emboldens everybody else to speak more freely, to say what they really believe, to express their opinions in a way that they would if only they weren't scared of losing their jobs. If I can, by being outrageous and absorbing some of the the firepower that comes my way, enable people to express themselves more freely and more honestly at home about the issues they care about, then I've done my job properly. And all signs are that is exactly what is happening. I think that Donald Trump's presidency even just his candidacy represents an existential threat to political correctness and to identity politics. And those are the two things that I am dedicated to destroying.
That's Milo Yiannopoulos. Phone number here is 800-222-5222. We'll come back with your calls. It's Talk Radio 790 KBC.